So I wanted to make a tier list of all the VR multiplayer shooters that are available on the Quest 2. But before we start, I'm just going to give a quick explanation. I'm only going to be judging these games based on the native Quest 2 versions of these games. I have also played the PC VR versions of some of these games too, but the majority of my time spent playing these games was playing natively on the Quest 2. But I'll mention any massive difference that a game has on PC VR if I feel like it's noteworthy. With that out of the way, let's get into it. First is After the Fall, and to summarize what I said in my previous video, this is a multiplayer zombie shooter that gives a compelling sense of replayability and makes it feel rewarding to play through its main levels and get better at them. There's a bunch of items in the game that you can earn only by playing through the game itself, and the gameplay is fun enough to make you want to grind the game, and of course it also makes it fun to play with friends. Out of all of these games, After the Fall has kept me consistently playing the most often, and the game gets updates with new content fairly regularly, which definitely helps a lot as well. For me personally, I'm going to put this in S tier. Next up is Alvo. For me, this is the most baseline military shooter that is available on the Quest 2. I only had about 4 minutes of fun with this one, and honestly, I already had enough of it after that. It doesn't do anything special to make it stand out from the other military shooters that are out there now. My view of this game could have to do with having played a bunch of other shooters like this in VR already, but regardless, I don't think this is anything that's going to keep you playing for long, and I'm going to put this in D tier. Next is Arizona Sunshine, and I didn't even know if I was going to include this game in the list because while it does have multiplayer, you are not going to find a single match online. The only way you can play this game is by joining friends that you already know who also have the game. Now the gameplay of Arizona Sunshine isn't bad, it's definitely showing its age with its mechanics compared to how many shooters today are, but there's still some fun to be had here. If a person who just got into VR plays this, they'll probably have a good time with it. For me, I'm gonna have to put this one in D tier as well. Now we have Contractors, and this one is definitely a lot of fun. It is another military VR shooter, but this one is relatively fast-paced and it honestly kind of feels like Call of Duty in VR. And this is definitely helped by the addition of custom map support, allowing actual Call of Duty maps to be played here, even on Quest. And there's actually a pretty good number of modes to play in this game as well. I'd say in terms of how much content there is in VR multiplayer shooters for the Quest 2, Contractors is probably the best one. So this one is going to be going in A tier. Next is Drop Dead, and honestly, I kind of feel the same way about this one as I did with Arizona Sunshine, although out of the two, I think I actually prefer this one over Arizona Sunshine, mainly because I actually like the more arcadey visuals and gameplay of this one, but even then, it's definitely something that doesn't have a bunch of replay value to it after the first 2 or 3 missions. It's another one that new VR players are probably going to enjoy a lot, but for me, I'm going to put this one in D tier. Now we have Hyperdash, and my opinion of this game has changed the most out of any of these games. I played this game back when it was only available on SideQuest when it was in its early builds. I had a lot of fun with it back then. It was one of those things that had me just blown away that it was running so well on a standalone headset. And I still felt that way when the game fully released, but I eventually took a break from the game at some point, and when it came back, it basically felt like every match was just a sweat fest. I don't know, it could just be me, but I feel like if you're playing against other players, this game can be absolutely brutal to you if you happen to temporarily walk away from the game. So while the gameplay is fun, I'm gonna put this one in B tier. So next is the hero shooter Larcenauts. Larcenauts was a game that when I initially played seemed like good casual fun, but not a game that could keep my attention for many months after its launch. And sure enough, I haven't touched the game in a long time, and honestly I don't plan on it in the future. Mechanics were neat and I enjoyed the different heroes and how they played, but it just didn't keep me interested for long. So for me, I'm gonna put this one in C tier. Next is Medal of Honor Above and Beyond, and I haven't actually played this one, sorry. Next is Onward, and this was the first military VR shooter that I played when I first got into VR, and I'm glad that it was. It's a military shooter that is definitely slower paced and more tactical. You really have to watch your surroundings at all times, and any small mistake that you happen to make can cause your death. The more slower paced nature of the game helped with the immersion, and definitely increased the wow factor that I was feeling with VR. And after playing a bunch of other shooters over the years, I honestly still enjoy this one quite a fair amount. It serves well as a break from the more faster paced VR shooters that I tend to prefer playing nowadays. So for me, I'm gonna put this one in B tier. Next is Pavlov Shack, and this is another game that I played before it was initially launched, well, the Quest version at least. And at the beginning when I first played it, there weren't really any other military shooters available for the Quest at the time, so naturally I gravitated towards this game and had a lot of fun with it. And then better games came out. The problem I had with this game is that the majority of lobbies you could join were playing one specific mode, which was Trouble in Terrorist Town. And while I think this is a fun mode, it's not really that fun after the 20th time you've played it simply because no other lobbies are playing any other mode. This did change a bit as time went on and custom map support made it into the game, but my interest in this game still depleted over time as better shooters came out with more variety and better mechanics. So the Quest version is going to be going in C tier. However, I do want to point out that the PCVR version of Pavlov is much more varied in terms of game modes and custom maps that you can play, and it definitely gives a better experience than the Quest version. Next is Population 1, and I thought that this Battle Royale game was the best VR game at the time, not only for Quest but for VR in general. The ability to climb everything on the map along with the flying mechanic provided so much depth to the game and really gave a lot of variation to how the encounters you have would play out. Anything could happen without warning, and if you were good enough, you could still fight and win most encounters you had. So fast forward about 5 months, and after constantly playing it, I basically burnt myself out on the game. I haven't played it since. Now you could say that me playing it that extensively could be the reason that I eventually played it, making it my own fault, but I've also been playing After the Fall extensively since that game came out, and I still have no sign of stopping, honestly. So for me, it's gonna go in B tier. Next we have Solaris Offworld Combat. Now we have Zero Caliber Reloaded, and I feel similarly about this game as I did with Alvo. Although Zero Caliber isn't a PvP game, it instead focuses on cooperative play with a campaign and a survival mode to play with your friends. And I would say that I enjoyed this game more than Alvo, but not by much. A lot of the time I was playing, I was only just mildly entertained, and the game was only just exactly what you'd expect. I did enjoy the climbing though, so this game is gonna go in C tier. Up next we have Death Horizon, and I actually haven't played this one either yet, sorry. Lastly is Gun Raiders, and this is the definition of casual fun. It has a more simplified, rather cartoony art style, and has multiple game modes that have you maneuver around maps with many weapons at the ready, and you just go to town on the other players. Switching around weapons constantly is fun, and the maps have a good level of verticality to them. I wouldn't say this game has a lot of replay value after long, but this is still a decent shooter in my opinion, but is going in B tier. And that's about it. If you feel differently about any of the rankings of these games, definitely let me know in the comments.